resistor and potentiometer. These two components are one of the fundamental components of electrical and electronic circuits. So when building an electronic circuit, we may need fixed resistance like this resistor and this fixed wattage resistor. This comes into various wattage like quarter watt, 1/4 watt, half watt, 1 watt, 2 watt, 5 watt and 10 watt. So different wattage is required for different application with different amperage. But if you need something in variable in nature, then the option we have is potentiometer. So potentiometer is basically a variable for resistance. There are several types of potentiometer available in the market. Like this one, this is called servo potentiometer. We have slide potentiometer, dual gang potentiometer, trimmer, then single turn potentiometer, dual slide potentiometer, and so on. So among all of these, the single turn potentiometer will study this sort of device and how to interface this sort of potentiometer with Arduino. We'll learn that in this video. Before going ahead, let me tell you, this resistance, the primary function of the resistance is to introduce resistance into an electrical or electronic circuit, and the resistance is measured in ohms. The resistor value are typically marked on the components using color codes or numerical values. So if it is a fixed watt resistance, you can see up to 2 watt there is color coded, but above 2 watt, that is 5 watt, 10 watt, the wattage and the resistance value will be written on the body itself. And the potentiometer, this comes into several values like 1 kilo ohm, 10 kilo ohm, 100 kilo ohm, 500 kilo ohm, and 1 mega ohm. These are the most common values available in the market for potentiometer. Here we can see a basic configuration of potentiometer with Arduino. A potentiometer, it has 3 pins. We can use the first pin as ground, then we'll have to supply into the third pin, and take the middle pin, that is the second pin, always as variable input. So in this manner, we can use this potentiometer. You can also swap the ground and 5 volt supply, like you can give 5 volt supply in the first terminal and give ground in the second terminal also. This potentiometer, this does not have any polarity, so you can swap the ground and positive supply. Now here you can see basic connection is shown in the figure. The potentiometer, the middle point, that is the analog output from this potentiometer, and variable resistance will be taken from this pin. So this pin we have taken and given into analog input rail, that is A0 to A5 pin for Arduino Uno. And the other 2 pins, the first pin has been given 5 volt supply and the third pin has been given ground. So this way we can connect any potentiometer with our Arduino and take analog input from this sensor, or we can say this potentiometer. So let's see how we can use this potentiometer with Arduino and change the output accordingly in different applications like LED dimmer or RGB light generation, etc. We have come into UART platform. In the UART, you can find potentiometer from here. You go down from the part list, and in the below portion, you will find something called potentiometer. So this potentiometer we can use for variable resistance, and it will be an analog input for Arduino. So here we have 3 pins. The first pin is ground, the second pin is the signal pin, analog input, and the third pin is for VCC. So let's connect them. Connect it to 5 volt, connect the pin to any of the ground, and connect to A0. Now we want to see what value we are getting from this sensor, and for that reason we'll introduce another concept, that is serial printing and serial monitoring. Serial monitor is a way of observing different parameters of sensors connected with Arduino in real time at the software using a USB cable. So we'll see what it is in next example. When you want to use a serial monitor, you need to address two things. The first thing is you need to initialize a serial monitor. For that, the command is serial.begin, and then within the bracket you need to specify the baud rate or the speed. The standard values of speed is these values: 4800, 9600, 19200 or 38400, etc. Initialization of serial command, it should be given into the void setup part. So this will initiate the serial communication. And the second thing you need to do, when you want to print something, you need to use a function that is serial.print or serial.println. There is difference between these two commands. Serial.print, it will print the values side by side, whereas serial.println, it will print the values at a new line. So that's the basic difference between serial.print and serial.println. So now we'll see how we can use serial communication for Arduino Uno with our potentiometer and observe the values of the potentiometer. If you want to know more on serial communication, you can refer to this website from Arduino, that is arduino.cc/reference/n. From here, come to this communication section, and under this communication, we have serial communication part here. Once you click it, you will find the details of serial communication, the functions available under serial communication. Different functions are available here. You can explore them. You can also see the given example so that you can have an idea how to use this in program. Like here you can see it's a program for serial.print. The first thing is, while using void setup, you need to initialize the serial communication. Then in your void loop portion, you can print anything like serial.print, serial.print, double apostrophe of any string, and so on. So /t, this is used for printing a tab. These are called escape sequence in the language of programming. /t will print a tab, a horizontal tab. Similarly, we can use /n for new line, /v for vertical tab, and so on. Before going into the program, let me introduce the function called analog read. So analog read is basically used for reading analog values from analog sensors or analog inputs like potentiometer. The syntax for analog read, we need to write analog read first, then in the bracket we need to give the pin number, that is A0 to A5, any of the pin that we will use for analog reading for Arduino Uno, A0 to A5. For other board, it could be different pins also. You can also store the value that you have read from sensor into a variable. That variable data type could be integer, float, or any other format. So here's some common data type used in C programming. Integer data type, it does not contain any decimal values, it contains integer values. Whereas floating data type, it takes in integer as well as floating part, that means the decimal part. There are some other data type like character, string, boolean. So if your sensor value has decimal input, then use float. If it is integer value, then use integer. Now let's talk about the programming part. In the void setup, we need to initialize the serial communication only. So let's initialize the serial communication, serial.begin, 9600 values of baud rate. Remember, analog input does not require to define using pin mode. What I mean, you do not need to write something like this, A0 input. So Arduino inherently knows that this A0 to A5, all of these are always going to be input. So you do not need to define them whether these are input or output. So for analog input, you can ignore this line of defining using pin mode. For void setup, it is enough to use just serial begin for initializing the serial communication. Now in the void loop part, we will read the values from the potentiometer. We will print that value in a serial monitor. So let's do this serial print, and we'll give a message first, that is the sensor value. Then we will print the read value from the sensor, that is analog read and A0. So it will read the A0 pin and instantly print the values after the sensor value execution line. And after that, we need to put a skip sequence for new line. Okay, so it will bring the code for next reading into the next line. If you are done with the programming, you can do the simulation from here. So here you can see sensor value, and the value it's reading is 0 because our potentiometer is in 0 position. Let's change the value of the potentiometer. If we rotate this dial, it will increase the value. And remember, Arduino Uno has a 10-bit resolution for analog read. That means whatever value we will read from this pin, it will be between 0 to 1023. And 1023 comes from 2 to the power 10. And the maximum value will be 1023. Again, if you decrease the sensor dial up to 0 position, the value would be 0. So in this way, we can read analog sensor and apply this sort of input for different application like motor control or LED fading or RGB color creation, and many applications which will require variable input for controlling. So that's all for this video. I hope you got the idea how to interface potentiometer with Arduino, how to program for a potentiometer using analog read, how to use serial monitor to observe the values. In the upcoming videos, maybe we will show you how to use LCD screen or other display devices to show this value in an external device. Remember this sensor value, we are seeing this using serial communication at the computer screen, not in any external device. We are observing this value in a computer software screen. So that's all for this video. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.